Over 50. These 5 Buddhist lessons will change how you see fear forever. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this scene. You're standing at the edge of the unknown. The night is silent, but inside your chest your heart pounds like a drum. Your palms are slick with sweat. Your mind rushes ahead, painting 1,000 frightening pictures of what could go wrong. That moment is fear. It has many faces: the fear of illness, of losing those we love, of loneliness, of running out of time. And for those of us past 50, its whisper grows sharper, more insistent, often arriving in the quiet hours of the night when no one else can hear it. But here's the truth. Fear is not only an enemy. Buddhism teaches us that fear can be a teacher. The Buddha never promised us a life without fear. Instead, he offered a lamp for the darkness, a way to walk forward with courage, clarity, and compassion even when shadows surround us. In today's video, I will share with you 5 timeless Buddhist lessons for overcoming fear and discovering lasting courage. These are not abstract ideas or distant philosophies. They are living practices that have carried countless generations through storms, and they can carry you too. And I must tell you, this video is packed with insights that could change how you face every challenge in your life. That is why I urge you, watch until the very end, because each lesson builds upon the last, and only when you see the full picture will the real transformation begin. As you listen, I invite you to share your own experiences in the comments, because your story might be the lantern someone else needs. And if you find wisdom here, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and help us spread these teachings to more people seeking peace and strength. Now, let us step into this journey together, into the heart of fear, and beyond it into courage. Lesson 1. See fear as an illusion. Fear has been with humanity since the first breath was drawn. It lives in the shadows of the mind, whispering possibilities of danger, of loss, of endings we cannot predict. The Buddha himself understood that fear is not a force outside of us. It is born from within. He once said, "All we are is the result of what we have thought." Those words echo across centuries and reach us even now, reminding us that much of what unsettles us is not reality itself, but the stories that our thoughts weave. Think for a moment of a shadow on the wall at night. In the dim light, that shadow grows long and shapeless, and in its distortion, we imagine monsters lurking. Yet the moment a lamp is lit, the shadow shrinks back to nothing. Fear functions in exactly the same way. It feels immense and unstoppable in the darkness of our imagination, but the instant we bring the light of awareness to it, fear loses its size and its power. What was once a giant dissolves into thin air. I remember a story told in a small mountain temple about an old man who had grown weary from sleepless nights. He confessed to the abbot that every evening he lay in bed imagining calamities. He feared thieves would rob him, feared the bank would collapse, feared that at any moment the roof above his head would come crashing down. He aged 10 years in a single season, not because of reality but because of the terror his mind conjured. The abbot listened patiently, then handed the man a simple candle. "This," he said, "is your fear." The old man lit it, and in the full daylight of the temple courtyard, the flame looked small and weak. The abbot smiled and said, "See, in darkness, fear grows wild, but in the light, it has no strength." The man understood that night that he had been held captive not by thieves or disasters, but by his own imagination. This is the first truth we must realize. Fear is often an illusion. It is the projection of a mind that has forgotten how to rest in the present. Most of what we fear has not happened, and much of it never will. We suffer more in anticipation than we do in the actual living of events. A doctor once said to me that most patients fear the diagnosis more than the disease itself. The dread before the test results, the waiting, the imagination that fills the silence, that is where the sharpest suffering lies. And once the truth is known, even if it is difficult, the fear often lessens because reality can be met with clarity, while illusion only multiplies in the shadows. There is an old saying, worry is like a rocking chair, it gives you something to do, but it takes you nowhere. Fear is much the same. It moves us endlessly, but not forward. It burns our energy, but brings us no peace. Buddhism calls us back to a different way, a path of awareness that says, stop rocking, step off the chair, stand in the present. For those of us who have lived half a century or more, fear changes its mask. In youth, fear often wears the face of rejection or failure. We worry whether we will succeed, whether others will approve, whether our dreams will take root. But after 50, fear becomes quieter and more cunning. It whispers of aging. It asks what will happen if health declines. It lingers over the thought of our children's struggles or the loneliness that may come if partners or friends leave before us. Fear becomes the constant murmur of what if. What if my body fails me? What if I am left behind? What if the future holds nothing but decline? But the Dharma reminds us to ask another question: what is actually happening right now? In this moment, most of those fears are not present. Right now, we are breathing. Right now, the heart still beats. Right now, we are safe. Fear thrives in the imagination of tomorrow, but when we anchor ourselves in the immediacy of this breath, this room, this step, we often find that life is gentler than the story fear tells. I once knew a retired nurse who admitted she was tormented by the fear of becoming irrelevant. For decades, she had cared for the sick and comforted the dying, and now in her 60s she felt that without her profession she had no purpose. This fear grew into withdrawal. She pulled away from her friends, certain she no longer mattered. One evening she sat alone on her porch and decided, almost in desperation, to try the practice of mindfulness she had once heard about in a meditation class. She simply closed her eyes, felt the rhythm of her breath, and observed her fear. "This is fear," she whispered to herself. "It is not the truth. It will pass." In that moment she stepped into the role of witness rather than prisoner. Something shifted. She realized her compassion had not vanished just because her career had ended. She began volunteering at a community center, not as a way to fight her fear, but as a natural expression of who she had always been. Her fear of uselessness dissolved because she saw it for what it was, a story, not reality. The Buddha taught that fear, like all emotions, arises, peaks, and fades away. To resist fear is to give it power. To observe it is to watch it dissolve. When we sit quietly and allow fear to appear, when we breathe into it instead of running from it, we discover its impermanent nature. The heart races, the palms sweat, the mind spins, and then slowly it all changes. Nothing in this world holds still forever, not even fear. There is a beautiful parable in the Buddhist tradition about a traveler who was chased by a hungry tiger. Running for his life, he stumbled to the edge of a cliff. Below him was another tiger. Unable to go forward or back, he clung to a vine. And as he dangled there, he saw a small strawberry growing from the cliffside. With one hand still holding the vine, he reached out, plucked the berry, and ate it. In that moment, the story says, he tasted its sweetness fully. The lesson is not that danger disappears, but that fear does not have to own every moment. Even in the midst of uncertainty, the present can hold beauty. The strawberry was real. The traveler's fear was real too, but it was not everything. He still had the capacity to taste joy. So it is with us. Fear tells us the whole sky is falling, but often there is still sunlight, still laughter, still something to savor if we pause and notice. By resting our attention on the reality of now, we cut fear down to size. Mindfulness practice is the key to this. When fear surges, instead of trying to argue with it, sit down. Feel the breath as it enters and leaves the body. Notice the pounding of your heart, the trembling in your hands. Label it gently. This is fear. And then remind yourself, fear is a visitor, it will pass. With each breath, you begin to see fear not as your master, but as a guest in the house of your mind. And like all guests, it comes and goes. Compassion also plays its role here. The Buddha taught that we should treat our own fear as we would treat a frightened child. If a child came to you trembling in the night, you would not shout at them or push them away. You would hold them, speak kindly, and reassure them until the fear softened. In the same way, when fear arises within us, we can whisper inwardly, "I see you, it's okay, you will pass." This gentleness transforms fear, because compassion and fear cannot exist fully in the same space. One expands the heart, the other narrows it. When compassion enters, fear must recede. As the years lengthen and we find ourselves looking more often backward than forward, it is easy to become haunted by regrets of what has been and anxieties of what may come. But Buddhism reminds us that both regret and anxiety are shadows. They live in the mind's stories, not in the present reality. The past cannot be changed, the future has not arrived, and the present is where life is always waiting for us. To see fear as illusion is to wake up to the simple, steady truth of this moment. In one of the old sutras, the Buddha told his disciples, "There is no fear for one whose mind is not filled with desires." The essence of this teaching is that fear grows in the soil of attachment to outcomes, to possessions, to identities, to control. When we release some of that grip, when we see that life flows as it must, fear finds less to hold onto. A clenched fist feels fear more intensely than an open palm. For those who have lived beyond 50, there is wisdom in this teaching. We know by now that life has carried us through changes we never planned. Some of the things we once clung to have already been taken away. And yet, here we are. Each loss has also revealed new beginnings. Each ending has contained within it the seed of another chapter. When we look back honestly, we see that life has always been more fluid than fear allowed us to believe. This recognition itself can be liberating. So let us draw the lesson together. Fear is not the truth. It is a shadow, an illusion of the mind. It thrives in darkness but weakens in the light of awareness. When we sit with it, breathe with it, and look at it clearly, fear loses its grip. It becomes just another passing state, like a cloud drifting across the sky. And beyond the cloud, the sky remains vast, untouched, and free. If you carry one thing from this teaching, let it be this. Fear will always try to tell you its story, but you do not have to believe it. You can meet it with awareness, with compassion, and with the quiet strength of someone who has already endured much and who knows that shadows cannot harm the light. In the end, fear is an illusion, and when we recognize it as such, what is left is the courage to live fully, peacefully, and without regret. Lesson 2. Root yourself in the present. Fear has many disguises, But perhaps its most cunning trick is how it pulls us away from the present. The mind, restless as a bird startled from the trees, is always flying backward into the shadows of the past or forward into the mist of the future. In the past it finds regret, replaying words that cannot be unsaid, moments that cannot be relived. In the future it finds anxiety, weaving endless stories of what may go wrong. Fear feeds on this kind of time travel, but here, in the simplicity of this moment, it cannot survive. The present moment is fear's great weakness, because reality is often softer, kinder, and more bearable than the stories the mind insists on telling. The Buddha often spoke of the mind as a wanderer. In the Dhammapada it is said, "The mind is hard to control, swift and restless, alighting where it wishes. Good it is to tame the mind, for a tamed mind brings happiness." This restlessness is what carries us out of the present and into fear. We relive old wounds again and again, as if repetition could rewrite history. We anticipate the disasters of tomorrow before they ever arrive, as if by suffering in advance we could lessen their sting. Yet this wandering of the mind does not bring peace. It only multiplies pain. The practice of Buddhism is to call the mind home, to rest it in the present, where life is actually happening. I recall the story of an elderly woman who lived many years haunted by a single argument with her daughter. The quarrel had been sharp, and words spoken in anger had cut deeply. Though reconciliation had taken place, the mother could not release the memory. Each day she replayed the scene, her heart tightening with guilt. At the same time, she grew anxious about her declining health, imagining herself bedridden, imagining her children burdened with her care. One day she visited a teacher and confessed her torment. The teacher listened patiently and then said, "You are rowing two boats at once. One is tied to yesterday, the other to tomorrow. No matter how hard you row, you will not move forward. Plant your feet in today. What kindness can you offer your daughter now? What joy can you taste in the tea you drink this morning?" The woman returned home, and for the first time in many years, she sat quietly with her tea. She listened to the steam rising, felt the warmth in her hands, tasted the slight bitterness followed by sweetness. It was such a small act, yet it was real. It was present. Slowly she began to offer her daughter daily acts of love, not out of regret but out of presence, and in time her fear softened. This is the way of the Dharma. When we step into the present, fear weakens. Regret cannot touch us here because the past is already gone. Anxiety cannot dominate us here because the future has not yet come. In the present there is only what is, and that reality, when seen clearly, is often enough. The Buddha himself knew the power of presence. There is a story of a monk who asked him, "Master, where should I dwell?" And the Buddha replied, "Dwell in the present moment." The monk asked again, "But Master, what about the past?" And the Buddha said, "The past is gone, let it go." The monk then asked, "What about the future?" The Buddha said, "The future has not yet come, do not chase it." The monk asked a final time, "Then what remains?" And the Buddha replied, "This moment, only this moment, here is where life is." That teaching, though simple, contains a lifetime of wisdom. We can see the truth of it in everyday life. Think of the times we've lain awake in the middle of the night, our minds spinning in circles. Perhaps we replay a mistake from 20 years ago, or imagine the illness that might strike in 20 years ahead. In those hours, our body is lying safely in bed, yet our mind is being tossed in storms that are not actually happening. The suffering is real, but the cause is illusion. And when at last we fall asleep and awaken to the morning, We often realize that life continues, the world is still turning, and the disasters we feared have not come. For those who have crossed 50, the temptation to time travel is especially strong. We carry more past behind us, and the awareness of mortality makes the future feel closer. We look back with regret, words not spoken, opportunities missed, people we loved who are no longer with us. We look forward with worry. Will our health hold? Will our children thrive? Will we be alone in old age? Both backward and forward, fear waits for us. Yet here in this present breath, in this present step, we are alive. The heart is beating, the lungs are drawing in air, the earth is still beneath our feet. To rest in this truth is to find peace. There is a Zen story about two monks traveling on pilgrimage. They came to a river where a young woman waited, afraid to cross. One monk, bound by strict rules, refused to help. The other lifted her onto his shoulders and carried her across. Hours later, the first monk scolded him. "We are monks, we should not have touched a woman." The other monk laughed gently and said, "Brother, I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is the essence of regret. We carry burdens from the past long after they have ended. To live in the present is to put them down. So too with anxiety. There is a tale of a disciple who worried constantly about the future. He asked his teacher, "What will become of me when I am old? Who will care for me? What if I fall ill?" The teacher handed him a basket and asked him to carry water from the river. By the time he reached the temple, all the water had leaked out through the gaps. The teacher said, "See how your effort was wasted because you could not hold what was not yet here. So it is with worrying about the future. You cannot hold it, it will always slip away. Better to drink from the water that is here now." When fear presses heavily on us, there is a practice we can return to. It is simple, almost childlike, yet deeply powerful. Whenever anxiety rises, we whisper to ourselves, "Here, now." We place our hands together and feel their warmth. We press our feet to the ground and notice its firmness. We breathe one breath slowly, deeply. In that instant, we are reminded of the truth. The present moment is enough. The storm of fear may rage in the distance, but here, in this breath, we are safe. I remember meeting a man in his 70s who told me that his greatest discovery in life was learning to savor the ordinary. He said, "When I was younger, I was always chasing tomorrow. I feared that if I didn't succeed, I would be nothing. And when I grew older, I feared tomorrow in a different way. I feared decline. But now I sit with my morning coffee and I listen to the birds. I realize this moment is full. I don't have to chase or fear what's ahead. I just have to live what is here." His words were simple, but they carried the depth of decades. Gratitude naturally arises when we are present. When we stop running into the past or the future, we suddenly notice what is here. The sun rising, the laughter of children, the comfort of a safe home, the taste of warm tea. These are small things, but they are real. They are gifts. The Buddha once said, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we did not learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we did not learn a little, at least we did not fall ill. And if we did fall ill, at least we did not die. So let us all be thankful." Gratitude is a doorway into the present. By recognizing blessings, we anchor ourselves here. And where there is gratitude, fear cannot take root. For those of us in later years, the present moment is not just a practice. It is a treasure. When we realize that the road ahead is shorter than the road behind, every day gains weight, every morning becomes a blessing. The present is not something to hurry through, it is something to savor. Each breath becomes a miracle, each relationship a chance to love more deeply, each small joy a reminder of the richness of being alive. The lesson is simple yet profound. When we root ourselves in the present, fear dissolves. It cannot survive here. Regret cannot drag us backward, anxiety cannot pull us forward. Only awareness remains, and in awareness there is peace. Life is not lived in memory or imagination. It is lived now. And when we dwell fully in the now, we discover that life is not a burden at all. It is a gift. So if fear comes to you, invite it to sit down with you here in the present. Offer it a cup of tea and watch as it fades, for it cannot drink deeply of the moment. Only you can. And when you do, you will find that the present is enough. It has always been enough. It will always be enough. Lesson 3. Courage through compassion. Fear has a way of shrinking us. It narrows the heart, contracts our breath, and makes the world seem smaller and darker than it truly is. When fear takes hold, we feel like a cornered animal, bracing for harm, uncertain of which way to turn. Compassion, however, is the exact opposite movement. It expands the heart, stretches our lungs with a deep breath, and widens the horizon of our vision. Compassion opens a door where fear insists there are only walls. And in that opening, courage enters. Not the hard, brittle courage of clenched fists and stiff jaws, but the quiet, enduring courage of a heart that refuses to close itself against the world. There is a timeless story told in many monasteries across Asia. A young monk was once sent into the forest to meditate alone for the first time. The forest at night was alive with sounds, branches snapping, leaves rustling, creatures moving unseen. Fear gripped his body so strongly that his teeth chattered. One night he heard a low growl, deep and threatening. Every instinct told him to flee. Instead, remembering his teacher's words, he closed his eyes, bowed his head, and whispered, "May this being be safe. May I be safe." He repeated it again and again until the words no longer felt forced but real. Peace, like warm water, began to pour over his fear. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw only a thin, starving dog standing before him, its ribs showing, its eyes wide with terror. The monk reached out his hand and the dog lowered its head. Both were afraid, yet both found calm in the presence of compassion. This story is not about animals in the woods. It is about the wild animals inside us, the fear, suspicion, and anger that leap out when we feel threatened. Fear narrows us. Compassion expands us. And in expansion, fear loses its grip. In modern life, the forest takes other shapes. Perhaps it is the difficult coworker who always seems to criticize. Perhaps it is the neighbor whose behavior makes us uneasy. Fear tells us to tighten, to put up defenses, to see these people as enemies. But compassion invites us to pause and consider. What pain might they be carrying? What burdens weigh them down? The heart that once clenched in fear now softens. We see them not as threats but as fellow humans stumbling along their path, just as we stumble on ours. Compassion does not mean excusing harmful behavior, but it means refusing to let fear or anger dictate how we see others. It transforms fear into understanding. The Buddha gave a teaching that has echoed across centuries. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by love. This is an eternal law. The same principle applies to fear. Fear is never healed by more fear, nor by avoidance, nor by aggression. It is healed when we open the heart wide enough that fear cannot fill it. Compassion is not a sentimental luxury. It is a practical medicine, One of the most powerful tools the Buddha left us for cultivating this medicine is the practice of metta bhavana, or loving kindness meditation. The practice is simple, yet its effects are profound. You sit quietly, perhaps with your eyes closed, and begin with yourself. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from fear. Then you extend it to those you love. May they be safe. May they be peaceful. Then to those you struggle with, even those you fear. May they be safe. May they be peaceful. Finally, you send it to all beings everywhere without exception. At first, the words may feel hollow, like an echo in an empty room. But with time and repetition, the heart begins to respond. The room fills, warmth grows, and fear, which once shouted loudly, becomes a faint whisper you no longer believe. There is a story from the Buddha's own life that shows this power. One day, a fierce bandit named Angulimala roamed the forests, feared by all. He was said to have killed many and wore a necklace of their fingers around his neck. When the Buddha heard of him, he did not avoid that forest. Instead, he walked straight into it. Angulimala, seeing him, rushed forward, blade in hand. The Buddha did not run. He simply stood and radiated loving kindness. When Angulimala demanded he stop, the Buddha replied, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who must stop." The words pierced through the bandit's rage. The courage and compassion of the Buddha disarmed him more effectively than any weapon. Angulimala fell at his feet and later became one of his disciples. The courage of compassion turned a feared murderer into a monk. Now, most of us will never face a bandit on a forest path. But we do face situations where fear tempts us to close the heart. An argument at the dinner table, a political disagreement, a diagnosis from the doctor. In those moments, courage through compassion becomes not a lofty ideal but a lifeline. When we breathe deeply and send goodwill even toward what frightens us, we regain freedom. Fear no longer dictates our choices. For those of us over 50, compassion often becomes easier to access. By this age, we have seen so much. The struggles of family, the illnesses of friends, the disappointments and betrayals that are part of every human life. This experience gives us perspective. We realize that everyone suffers, not just us. We begin to recognize ourselves in the faces of others. Their pain is not foreign, it is familiar. And in that recognition, our fear begins to dissolve. The neighbor who shouts is also the child who once longed for comfort. The stranger who cuts us off in traffic is also the parent hurrying home to a sick child. Compassion grows naturally when we understand that suffering is shared. This does not mean we let others harm us without boundaries. Compassion is not weakness. It is not about allowing abuse. Rather, it is about refusing to let fear poison the heart. Boundaries can be set with compassion. Firm words can be spoken with kindness. Courage is not about denying fear, but about letting love be stronger than fear. The poet Rumi once said, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Fear is one of those barriers. Compassion tears it down. And when the barrier falls, courage rushes in like a river freed from a dam. Consider this practice in your own daily life. The next time fear rises, fear of illness, fear of the unknown, fear of conflict, pause. Place your hand gently on your heart. Breathe. Whisper to yourself, "May I be safe, may I be peaceful." Then whisper it for the other, "May they be safe, may they be peaceful." You may not change the situation immediately, but you will change the atmosphere of your heart. And in that change lies the seed of courage. In truth, Courage through compassion is not just a lesson of Buddhism. It is a universal truth found in many traditions. The Dalai Lama often says, "If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion." Notice he does not separate the two. Our happiness and the happiness of others are bound together. When we practice compassion, we dissolve the illusion of separation, and where there is no separation, there is nothing to fear. The takeaway is simple but profound. Compassion is the courage of the heart. It does not roar or dominate. It does not need armor or shields. It stands open, steady, unafraid, because it knows that to love is stronger than to fear. And when compassion fills the heart, fear has nowhere left to live. Lesson 4. Ethical living as inner armor. When we speak about fear, we often think of external dangers, illness, financial insecurity, or the fear of losing loved ones. But there is another kind of fear, one that lurks deep inside, the fear that comes from knowing we have not lived truthfully. This fear is quiet but corrosive. It gnaws at us in the silence of night. It whispers when the room is dark. What if others find out? What if my life has been built on dishonesty? Buddhism teaches that the way to peace is not only through meditation or prayer, but also through the way we live. The Buddha called it sila, ethical conduct. To live with truthfulness, kindness, and integrity is to create an inner environment that cannot be easily shaken. When our conscience is clear, we walk through the world with lightness. We do not carry the burden of lies, and therefore the fear of judgment weakens. A clear conscience is like armor, not heavy armor that restricts us, but light, flexible armor that allows us to move freely without worry. Think of the bamboo tree. When storms come, the bamboo bends, it sways even to the ground, but it does not break because its roots are deep. Its strength is not in rigidity but in being deeply grounded. In the same way, ethical living is our root. When life storms arrive, and they always do, our integrity holds us steady. We may bend, but we do not fall. There is a story often told in Buddhist circles of a businessman who, in his 60s, began to feel the weight of his past. Throughout his career, he had cut corners, told small lies, taken more than his share. At the time, these actions seemed necessary, even clever. But as he grew older, he began to suffer in ways he could not explain. He was restless at night, tormented by thoughts of being exposed. He feared not only what others might think, but also what legacy he would leave behind. Would his children remember him as a man of wealth or as a man of deceit? Finally, something in him shifted. He began to live differently. He started small. He apologized to a colleague he had wronged years earlier. He made amends to his family, admitting where he had failed them. He began to choose honesty in the little daily things, telling the truth when it was inconvenient, refusing shortcuts even when no one was watching. At first it was painful, like shedding an old skin, but slowly something unexpected happened. His fear began to lift. His sleep returned. His relationships deepened. Even his health improved. The armor of ethical living wrapped around him, not as something heavy, but as a source of peace. His conscience became his shield. This story reminds us that it is never too late to change. Ethical living is not about perfection. It is about sincerity, about making the effort to align our actions with our deepest values. Each time we choose truth over deception, kindness over cruelty, patience over anger, we add another root to the bamboo of our life. And with deep roots, storms lose their power to break us. Buddhist teachings often compare ethical living to the foundation of a house. Meditation, wisdom, compassion, these are the walls and roof. But without a strong foundation, the house collapses in the first storm. A life without ethics is like a house built on sand. It may look impressive for a time, but inside it is unstable. One strong wind, one flood of circumstance, and it falls. A life grounded in ethics, however, endures. One practice that can help us nurture this foundation is simple but profound. Each evening before sleep, sit quietly and reflect. Did I live with honesty today? Did I act with kindness? Did I practice patience? These are not questions meant to shame us, but to guide us. If the answer is yes, the heart feels light. If the answer is no, tomorrow becomes an opportunity to choose differently. This small ritual roots us in ethical living. It reminds us that each day is a chance to strengthen our armor. The Buddha himself lived as an example of this truth. He refused to compromise his integrity, even when it brought hardship. Once, when falsely accused by a jealous rival, the Buddha did not lash out or defend himself with anger. He remained calm, his conscience clear, and in time the truth revealed itself. His peace was unshakable because his foundation was unshakable. For those of us over 50, this lesson becomes especially clear. At this stage of life, reputation, memory, and relationships mean far more than possessions. The house, the car, the titles, all of these fade. What remains are the stories people tell about us, the way they remember our presence, the words they recall from our mouths. Did we live truthfully? Did we act with compassion? Did we carry integrity through both triumph and failure? These are the questions that matter. I once heard an elder say, at the end of life, no one asks how much money you had in the bank. They ask what kind of person you were. A life of ethical conduct brings lightness to the heart. You no longer need to carry the heavy burden of lies or regrets. When your conscience is clear, your sleep is deeper, your friendships warmer, and your courage unshakable. The poet and mystic Khalil Gibran once wrote, "Your living is determined not so much by what life brings to you, as by the attitude you bring to life. Not so much by what happens to you, as by the way your mind looks at what happens." Ethical living is the attitude that changes everything. It transforms fear of judgment into peace of mind. It transforms uncertainty into steadiness. It transforms life itself into something lighter, freer, more joyful. The takeaway is simple. A clear conscience is the strongest protection. It is armor no one can strip from you, not illness, not betrayal, not even death. Integrity cannot be stolen. Kindness cannot be erased. Truth cannot be destroyed. And when you carry these within you, courage arises naturally. You need not force it. You need not search for it. Courage becomes who you are. Lesson 5. Let go and trust the path. At the root of fear lies one simple truth. We are afraid because we cling. We cling to outcomes, to identities, to people, to dreams of how life should be. We build fortresses in our minds where everything is orderly and under control, but the moment life shifts, as it always does, fear slips in through the cracks. Fear whispers, "What if I lose what I love? What if I cannot hold on?" Buddhism invites us to look deeply at this clinging and see it for what it is, the cause of suffering. The Buddha did not teach that we should give up on love or ambition, but that we should loosen our grip on the illusion of control. Life, like the river, has its own current. To fight against it is to exhaust ourselves. To flow with it is to discover peace. Imagine two people standing by a rushing river. One throws themselves in and struggles furiously against the current, arms thrashing, body stiff with resistance. They make little progress and exhaustion drags them under. The other person takes a deep breath, surrenders to the current and floats. The water carries them not always where they planned but always forward. Life is this river. The choice is ours. Resist and drown or trust and be carried. There is a story of a woman who was diagnosed with a chronic illness in her late 50s. For years, she fought against her reality with anger and despair. She scoured the internet for miracle cures, raged at doctors, and wept at the unfairness of it all. But the illness remained. Her body changed in ways she could not stop, and with each futile attempt to control it, her fear grew heavier. One day she sat in a quiet garden with an old Buddhist teacher. She confessed her rage, her sorrow, her terror of what lay ahead. The teacher listened gently, then placed a small leaf in her palm. "Do you see this leaf?" he asked. "It has lived its season and soon it will fall. Does it fight the wind? Does it curse the tree? No, it simply lets go and returns to the earth. Can you too let go and return to the flow of life?" At first she resisted, but slowly she began to practice acceptance. She stopped asking, "Why me?" and began asking, "What now?" She noticed small joys she had overlooked before. The warmth of the sun through the window, the sweetness of her morning tea, the laughter of her grandchildren. Her slower body allowed her to cultivate deeper friendships, more presence and gratitude for the simple things. She did not cure her illness, but she transformed her suffering into wisdom. By letting go, she found peace. This is the paradox of life. The more we try to control, the more fear we create. The more we let go, the freer we become. Letting go is not giving up. It is not laziness or indifference. It is an act of profound trust. It is saying to life, "I will walk this path with open eyes and open heart, even when I do not know where it leads." In Buddhist tradition, there is the famous story of Kisegatami, a young mother who lost her only child. Stricken with grief, she carried the child's body from house to house, begging for medicine to bring him back. Finally, she went to the Buddha. He told her, "Bring me a mustard seed from a home that has never known death." She searched everywhere, but every household had its own story of loss. Slowly, she understood. Death was not her curse alone, but the condition of all beings. In that understanding, she let go of her desperate clinging and her heart began to heal. This story is not about cruelty. It is about awakening to reality. Life does not bend to our demands. Children grow, bodies age, loved ones leave, and one day we too must let go. Fear arises when we try to clutch these truths with closed fists. Courage arises when we open our hands and release them. In modern life, we see this teaching everywhere. Think of how parents struggle as their children become adults. A mother may try to control her son's choices, fearing he will fail. A father may criticize his daughter's career, fearing she will suffer. But when parents release the need to control and instead trust the unfolding of their children's path, relationships soften. The children may stumble, yes, but they also grow. Love, when free of control, becomes deeper and stronger. There is a simple practice that can help train the heart to release. Each evening, take a small piece of paper. Write down one worry, one fear, one thing you are clinging to. Then whisper, "This too belongs to the path." Fold the paper and set it aside. The act seems small, even trivial, but it plants a seed. It reminds you that everything, every joy, every sorrow, every gain, every loss, belongs to the great unfolding of life. For those of us over 50, this lesson is especially poignant. At this stage of life, so many fears come from what we cannot control. our health, the choices of our children, the changing world around us. Our bodies may ache in ways they never did before. Our careers may no longer define us. Friends and loved ones may pass away. But Buddhism teaches that letting go is not the same as surrendering in defeat. It is opening to life as it is, without clinging to what we wish it to be. The great Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki once said, "Life is like stepping into a boat that is about to sail out to sea and sink." His words may sound grim, but they are not. They are liberating. When we accept that the boat will sink, that life is impermanent, we stop wasting energy on clinging. Instead, we live more fully. Each sunrise becomes a blessing. Each smile becomes a treasure. Each breath becomes enough. Ethical living, compassion, presence, all the lessons we have explored are incomplete without this final step, trust. Trust that life, even in its uncertainty, carries wisdom. Trust that each challenge is a teacher. Trust that even in loss, there is hidden grace. The takeaway is clear. Courage is born when we release control and trust life's unfolding. Fear thrives on clinging, but when the hands of the heart open, fear dissolves into trust. Letting go does not mean we stop caring. It means we stop fearing. It means we allow life to carry us like the river carries the leaf toward its natural and inevitable ocean of peace. Fear is not a life sentence. It is not a chain meant to keep you bound forever. Fear is a doorway, and each time you choose to open it with mindfulness, with compassion, with trust, you step closer to freedom. The Buddha once said, "You only lose what you cling to." And he was right. When we cling, we suffer. When we release, we discover a peace that cannot be shaken. At this stage of life, we are no longer here to fight endless battles with shadows of fear. We are here to walk with wisdom, to live with dignity, to rest in deep inner peace. These 5 lessons are not just ideas to think about, they are steps on a living path. To see fear as illusion, to root yourself in the present, to expand your heart with compassion, to live truthfully and ethically, and finally, to let go and trust the unfolding of life. Together, they form a map that does not promise a life without storms, but a life where storms cannot break you. Imagine ending each day not with dread, but with stillness. Imagine waking not with anxiety, but with courage that hums quietly in your chest. This is possible, not someday, not in some perfect future, but here now tonight if you choose to walk this path. So breathe deeply. Let fear dissolve into silence. Step into the present with both feet, and walk forward not as someone trembling in the dark, but as someone who carries a lantern of calm, steady light. That light has always been yours. It will never abandon you. And as we close, I want to remind you, this video has been filled with insights that can reshape the way you live and breathe each day. If you found even one moment here that spoke to your heart, then I invite you to carry it forward, and also to share your reflections in the comments below. Let others know which lesson touched you most, because your words may be the lantern someone else is waiting for. If this message brought you clarity, peace, or even a spark of courage, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because every week, we continue this journey together, uncovering wisdom that lightens the heart and strengthens the spirit. Stay with this path. Stay with these truths. Because the more we walk together, the more fearless, compassionate, and deeply alive our lives will become.